They called him the Diesel.
Crank up that diesel. Let's go.
He leaned across the table and he goes, "You need to get me back there. I'll make you famous."
And to Riggins, good hold. He's got the first down to the 40. He's gone. The 35, the 30, the 20. He's gone. He's gone.
It's Riggo the Diesel.
Hello, and thank you for joining us here on Riggo the Diesel. I am Riggo. I am John Riggins with Larry Michael, the voice of the Washington Redskins. This is episode 29 of season 2, or total episode 69, I believe is what I got on my sheet. And I'm happy to welcome back Larry Michael, who's been in Indianapolis last week at the Combine. And I'm very curious to know exactly what went down there. And there's so many angles to go at this with. I don't know whether the first angle, Larry, is to go after hours or to start with business as usual as it pertains to the team.
Well, I mean, today, if you happen to look at the social media over the last 24 hours and this kind of firestorm of, I will put in quotes, reports on the Redskins' intentions with their second overall pick. Now, I wasn't born yesterday, John. This is one of the oldest ones in the book. All right, if you think about, well, you never know what's going to happen.
Salting the mind, is that what they call it?
You know, but to be irresponsible with some of the reports. I mean, I saw some things last week I will not even dignify. There was a guy, former basketball player, who now does a radio show for a national network, who said something about Dwayne Haskins, which was totally unsubstantiated and way out of left field. Did you see that one, Todd?
I did.
You see that?
Because it got my attention.
Said he couldn't read right. He was dyslexic. And look, I've known Dwayne now for over a year. The kid is super smart. I don't know where they come up with this stuff. I guess nowadays you say something and it just becomes, I guess it becomes a topic of discussion, even if it's not true. And get a little run out of that, I guess. Everybody's looking for a little run, aren't they?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, in other words, get more, what do you call it, more hits on your
More hits. He's looking to get a little run, looking to get over, whatever you want to call it. But, again, when you deal with the draft, and, we've been around a while, you got a lot of misinformation. And, it reminds me of the quote that Bob Arum, the famous boxing promoter, said. He made a claim to a group of writers that a fight was going to happen. I think it had something to do with Muhammad Ali. And the very next day, he announced a completely different fight. And they said, well, didn't you tell us yesterday that this? He says, yesterday I was lying. Today I'm telling the truth. That's what he told.
I like the way.
Boxing sidebar, if I may, and I'm yelling.
Yes.
Did you see Bob Arum
in
the ring, Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder fight, and trying to sing Bye Bye Miss American Pie after the fight?
Yeah. I saw him. He didn't know the words.
He not a word. He was singing. He didn't know where it was. New York, New York.
He didn't know. He's a very unique guy. I mean, the guy is still relevant, where all of his former competitors, like Don King, is no longer relevant. Bob Arum is very relevant. He's got the heavyweight champion of the world. He's got Lomachenko, best pound-for-pound fighter, a lot of people think, in the world. This guy's 89 years old, still going strong, Todd. So he
doesn't know how to sing American Pie.
Let's just say he's still going.
He's still going.
Strong might be a strong word.
Yeah, and we'll talk. Riggo wants to talk about the fight.
Do you know the words to American Pie? All of them? Can you recite?
It's 7 minutes long, for crying out loud. I remember that song was 1971 because I remember I'd play it on my way back to Long Beach in on Long Island when I was rookie year with the Jets.
That was back then.
Yeah.
Don McLean.
I'd get on.
I live in McLean, but I don't know Don McLean.
Van Wyck Parkway, and then I'd get off, and I can't remember where I got off.
The memories it's triggered?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
but that song lasts forever. I mean,
it's a great song. Asa, you know that song, Asa?
Might not be as long as
thumb up.
MacArthur's Park or whatever.
What's that? MacArthur's Park?
Wasn't that it or something like that? Yeah. Richard Harris.
Oh.
I don't think that I can take it because it took so long to bake.
What's he?
What? He'll never have that recipe again.
Yeah. Now you're really going. I don't know that one. I don't know that one.
Yeah, you did.
I don't know that one.
Yeah.
Back to the Combine.
Yes, back to the Combine.
Kudos to the crew. They put about 50 miles on their legs, walking back and forth. You walk back and forth from the hotel to the press room, Radio Row, and to the stadium. You're walking back and forth a couple times a day. It's all underground or above ground. You never have to go outside. It's a perfect setup for the Combine. But in talking to some of the coaches who are back today working, So they said it seemed really long. They'd added a day. They'd flipped the schedule.
They added a day of workouts?
Yeah, they stretched
So
it
they
out.
give off certain guys off one day, but they add an extra. I thought that's the impression.
Yeah, I mean, different position groups came and went on a staggered schedule. Quarterbacks, I think, were the second day. But really, other than a couple guys pulling a hamstring and a couple guys maybe performing under expectations, I mean, what real news came out of the Combine? What real news came out of the Combine? A lot of fake news came out of the Combine, as we witnessed today. I will say this, J.P. Finley, who's our buddy over there at NBC Sports Washington, he got it right.
Well, Larry,
he got it right.
Clarify exactly the rumors that are floating around there, and people are chirping on both sides because we really have not.
Well, I could say that. I can say this much, without saying too much. The report, I guess, was that Dwayne Haskins was told at his interview by Ron Rivera that they were going to get Tua to compete with him. No, backwards. Tua was told at his interview with Ron Rivera.
But at the same time, Ron Rivera a year ago interviewed Dwayne Haskins at the same event.
Yeah, let me start over. The report 24 hours ago, whatever, was that at Tua's interview with the Redskins, Ron Rivera told him that he'd like to pick him up to compete with Dwayne. Only problem with that was that Ron Rivera was not present at that interview. He wasn't there. He was at a competition committee meeting. So it makes no sense. And then J.P. Finley actually found the right story and put it out. But this is the way these things happen. And when's the draft? April 23rd? Imagine all that's going to happen between now and then of this fountain of misinformation that you're going to hear. Not even the Redskins didn't even do anything. It just somebody goes off and tries to make up a story.
I wanted to ask you, because I think you're much closer to it than I have ever been, because it doesn't particularly interest me personally. But the draft itself, the strategies by all the teams, 32 teams going into the draft, depending on what your position is. You're the first overall, you're the second overall, which Washington happens to be this year. There is, I got to believe that, it's one of those deals where it gets so, the intrigue in trying to set up a certain pitcher, so you're kind of like a bait and switch. In your mind, is that basically what we're seeing here? I mean, to me, it's like what you're saying. Well, who cares really if they interviewed Tua and saying, well, we might get you. I mean, really, it just comes down to whatever happens. I mean, but how does it influence other teams when you put out whatever rumor you want? I don't get that part.
I don't either. I mean, Kyle Smith, we did a sit-down with Kyle Smith. He said the Redskins are in the position where they could move up, they could move down, or they could stay where they're at. Okay? He says, okay, you could move up because you have that second pick, and, if you package something with it to move up into first, you could probably do that. You could stay where you're at. We don't have to do anything. Or you could get a windfall of picks that would compel you to trade down. And, I've talked to a lot of fans who love Chase Young. Obviously, that's a local kid. Got a ton of talent. I've talked to fans who like the idea of gathering extra picks. The Redskins don't have a second-round pick. But this happens every year. It happens with every team every year. We're in Washington. There's a big buzz about this team, especially now with Ron Rivera at the helm. There's a lot of interest, and it's going to build all the way to the draft. And you get that second-round pick, get that second overall pick, I should say, because you won 3 games last year. So anything you can do to improve your team, you need to do. And free agency is before. And you've got Trent Williams' situation where everybody's talking about that as well, which I'd love to hear your opinion on that one because Trent's a great player. And again, who do you have there at left tackle right now who's going to play left tackle? The Redskins' offensive line, in fact, if you look at the people on the roster right now, you got a couple guys who are free agents, Eric Flowers and Tony Bergstrom. You have Chase Rouliers in the last year of his deal. You got 2 rookies. And Ross Pierschbaker and Wes Martin, who were under contract. Mm-hmm. You got Brandon Sheriff, who a decision has to be made on him. You got Trent Williams, a decision has to be made on him. So there's a lot of moving parts right there, I think.
And what about Donald Penn? You didn't mention his name.
Yeah, he's a free agent. I guess he could return.
I mean, he was adequate last year, I thought. It wasn't like he had a glaring weakness over there or anything.
No, but I think you want to improve at every position if you can. And Timon Paris, a young player who was on the roster last year. You got a couple other players who were on the roster who might figure in. But that's a position that you think, over the next – and this, I think, I'm going to concentrate on this. Free agency is going to come, ready or not, March the 18th. That's a couple weeks away.
Yep,
so while everybody wants to speculate what they might do in terms of draft picks and everything, I mean, this is really happening right now.
You bring up a great point as far as chronologically speaking. It's really all about free agency right now, and the draft will take care of itself later on.
You got to see what you can do, and you got cap space. So, but if you look at some of these situations, I think something has to happen. Maybe it doesn't have to happen with Trent Williams. Maybe this can wait till the draft, and maybe there's a way if you did want to make a trade, you could get picks for Trent, or if you wanted to keep him, you could extend his contract, which is the reports right now is that he wants a contract extension.
Well,
so,
and based on what happened last year, I mean, this could go into before the season starts and a deal be done, and you get a player. There's all kinds of possibilities. We're hardly at that drop dead point as far as what they want to do with Trent Williams, in my opinion, anyway.
But rarely do you see a player sit out with plenty left in the gas tank for a full year.
Right.
You did that.
Well, my banker wouldn't have called. I might not ever came back, but he called. Trent is not going to get a call from his banker. He's got one leg up on me there. That's for sure.
You got the phone call, huh?
Yeah, I got the phone call.
John,
yeah,
you got some bills to pay.
It's like this. You want me to be living in your house and you out on the street, you got to figure this out. So anyway, all right, let's take a break and we'll come back to this.
All right, do you know that your Washington Redskins are sponsored by Koch Industries? That's K-O-C-H, Koch. Their 67,000 U.S. employees make a lot of things that make game days better. Greener turf, they make that. Stronger paper products for tailgating, they make that. Electronic components and TVs and smart devices, you can watch the Redskins win anytime. Yeah, Koch makes that too. See all they make for on and off the field at kochmakesthat.com.
All right, now, 1-833-RIGGLE44. That's a phone number. If you've been paying any attention, you know exactly what that phone number is for. 1-833-RIGGLE44. It's O'Connor Plumbing. I'm not saying you're going to have problems, but you know what? It wouldn't hurt probably to give O'Connor a call, have them come out. They'll give you a free 44-point inspection, check everything out, make sure it's shipshape. If you got something wrong, they'll give you an estimate right there, and they'll give you a fair price, and they do a great job. And if they don't get it right the first time, of course, they never have to come back the second time, but they will, of course. 1-833-RIGGLE44, O'Connor Plumbing. Give them a holler.
Whether on the field or in the classroom, the Redskins believe learning should be fun. That's why we've partnered with youth entrepreneurs to bring their engaging, hands-on style of learning to classrooms in the D.C. metro area. Youth Entrepreneurs curriculum was created by educators for educators, meaning it's flexible, fun, and absolutely free. To learn more about Youth Entrepreneurs and how to experience for yourself, visit getye.org.
Ladies and gentlemen, stand back and watch the Phoenix rise from the ashes.
Stand back. It's Riggo the Diesel.
Andy, what you told me, which is pretty astounding, I think, that he's a full-blown gypsy.
Yes, the Gypsy King. He's a traveler.
I guess he's one of those gypsies. I don't think you want to mess with gypsies in general. I don't think it's going to be in your best interest. I think they're pretty good at whatever they do, whatever that is. I'm not sure, but this guy, if he goes, if he breaks bad on you, you got serious problems.
I think he's a UK gypsy, not a European. I guess but UK.
I don't know,
but I think he's.
There's USA gypsies too, Larry. They
Brad Pitt Fight Club.
That was on just the other night. I almost started to watch it. I went, nah, I don't want to watch it.
It's a real believable movie.
Yeah.
It is? I might have to watch it then.
No.
Is it worth watching?
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
Oh, okay. Anyway, back to Trent Williams or wherever you want to go.
Look.
I was going to weigh in.
What do you do with the second overall pick in the 2020 NFL Draft? John Riggins, you are on the clock.
I think you hold your position and take the kid from Ohio State. I mean, he's a local kid, right? By everybody's estimation, he's good for it. You've got another guy on the other side that's up and coming, which is, obviously Sweat is the guy that they drafted last year and 15 overall?
26 overall.
26, okay, that's right. They were 15 and then he dropped back. Anyway, you're expecting big things from him. He's in his second. In other words, you could see at the end of the year he was starting to kind of get the hang of things, and they finally put him in a position where he was doing things he felt comfortable doing. I don't think covering backs out of the backfield was something that necessarily what he figured he was getting paid to do when he came here. So you have that on one side potential. This guy, once again, anything can happen. You never know. Best laid plans of mice and men. But this guy's supposed to be a generational talent as a pass rusher. when you really look at this, the guy that throws the ball, obviously we all can agree on the fact, most important position on the field in the NFL nowadays. You got to have a quarterback that can throw the football. The passing game's going to win. Look at Kansas City. They're just off and running now. The other guy that's second in importance in my mind, well, they're kind of 1 and 2. Tackle,
right,
that has to block the guy coming off, but the guy off the edge from the other side of the ball, in my mind, the guy that's the most disruptive that can throw a team's timing and everything off because he's such a force in the game, that to me is like, and it's a tailor-made situation. And in this sense, you can't go wrong. What if Cincinnati all of a sudden decides to do a switcheroo and they draft Chase Young for whatever reason? Then all of a sudden you've got Joe Burrows. Now that really gets interesting. But I'm going with everything stays the way it is, and Cincinnati used their first pick to pick Burrows. Then I think you got it. In other words, if Chase Young is there, I think he's the guy to get for this football team. That's what I would do. But you're right. I mean, when you think about it, there's all kinds of possibilities and all kinds of things that they can do with other teams to get more draft picks. But I think if you've got what you talk about, a consensus of people that know that, and of course everything's based on barring injury, you got a player perhaps of the Lawrence Taylor caliber type of guy that you're looking at here maybe, and that may be a little bit lofty. But at the same time, anybody of that ilk, how can you pass up that guy? I just don't see how you can do that, but we'll see what happens.
Well, we got, a month and a half.
Did I sell you?
What?
Are you Chase Young?
You know what? I think you are the voice of conventional wisdom. You are very rational in your strategy.
Well, it's the simplest by far.
Yeah.
And there is. Have you ever heard of Occam's razor, which is the most simple explanation for something is usually the right one?
No. Has Todd ever heard of that?
Occam's razor.
Occam's razor. Do you know what that is?
That's what this is. This is the simplest explanation for what to do in the draft, and usually that's the right approach.
Never even heard that term. See, you make me feel dumb, John.
Well, I had that pulled on years ago by an attorney. So,
speaking of attorneys, attorneys, I understand that this new CBA, whenever it gets signed, will benefit some of the older players out there. Some of the players that you and Lisa Marie have been kind of working towards helping. But for the current players, a 17th game looms. What are your thoughts on that? And then we'll talk about the alums a little bit.
I'm torn because you got to remember, the generation that I played in it's hard for me to think in terms of being a player today and making the kind of money they make. Back in those days, based on what you were getting paid, and depending on what your job was, some of the, well, they all were tough jobs, but some of them a little tougher than others when it comes to the physical part of it. Certainly the offensive and defensive linemen, those were the guys down in the trenches. And I think back in those days, you add an extra game, which they did. They added 2, and I forget what, 1976, I think.
From 14 to 16.
Went from 14 to 16. Originally, before that, it was 12. Went from 12 to 14, and then to 16. Now they want to go to 17. And like I said, I still don't know how I'd react to it. Obviously, the very first iteration of this was where they were going to put a $250,000 cap on that extra game, but the owners wisely went, we'll give you a game check. Basically, in other words, whatever you make per game, if you break it down to, if you make $1.6 million for a season, you play 16 games at $100,000 a game. Well, you would get that amount of money under this the new collective bargaining agreement if they go to a 17th game, which was, to me, was right there. I'm going, well, that would have to be part of the criteria. But if you're a guy that's making, 10 to 15 to 20, and then you get into the quarterback pay.
Yeah.
And quarterbacks, this is what's interesting to me. I would see where the quarterbacks would say, yeah, give us a 17th game. Give us a 17th game. Because when you think about it, their job description, their uniform should never be cleaned, if based on what their job description is. Of course, now it's changing a little bit. You got the run pass option or whatever it is, RPO. Maybe not so much, but for a guy like Tom Brady, for him, I'm thinking, yeah, definitely, I'll play a 17th game and get another whatever it is he's going to make, $2 million a game. You get another $2 million for 60 minutes of football. I don't know. Personally, I would jump on it, but here's what I don't get, Larry. I swear to God, I don't understand this: the mindset of the younger players. because they talk about the 17th game like, whoa, wow, the wear and tear. And I'm thinking, and then because they play a 17th game, now we have to cut back on practice. We want to come back, in other words, I forget, there's 24, I think, preseason. In other words, when they go to Richmond or wherever, when they start two-a-days, I think there's 24 of those. Now they want to cut it back to 16 for an extra game. And I'm thinking, from an old, and it's going to sound like sour grapes, which I don't mean it that way, but the reality is there's a complete different perception on the mindsets of the younger guys, and I'm on their side, and because they see, the ravages of what the sport does, but at the same time, I also, being an older guy who played the game when it was truly rough and tumble, that I look at what they're asking and what they want, and they want the best of all possible worlds, which, okay, it's fine to ask for it. But the reality is at some point you got to go, hey, it's still football, guys. And even though we sanitized it to the point where some guys like myself and others that go, you got to be kidding with some of the things they do and some of the rules now, that you would have to think that based on what you're being asked to do, I don't see where the problem. I don't see the problem here for them playing an extra game. Because ultimately, if you were to get to where you felt like you're worn out, well, that's where you come up with you're not healthy to play that week, and they get somebody else to fill in for you. So I don't, like I said, I don't see where all these guys are holding back on that 17th game. I don't think it's such a big deal personally.
Yeah, well, it's a negotiation. Now to the alums who you guys have been working towards helping. Can you shed any light on what might happen if this thing gets ratified to those alums?
Oh, well, I don't know the full implication because there's so many permutations of exactly how it would impact each and every player, because there's some players, I'll give myself for example, I played 14 years, but I elected to take my retirement at age 55. I think I started at 55. And also I took a lump sum, which was like 25% of the retirement. I took that at age 55 as well. Well, a guy, and Mark Mosley's one of them. Mose, I don't know, he probably has just started taking his pension, which when you wait to 65, the numbers are pretty good. But and I don't know, he played close to the same amount of time that I played because he didn't take a 25% lump sum, and he waited and took his pension at 65. His pension would be considerably higher than mine.
Right.
So it really depends on the player, but it would appear, based on what you said, and it's true, and my wife has been in contact with some people that have been in contact with people with the Players Association, also one of the people that's pretty high up on the owner's side of the thing. And I think the consensus is that this is going to be a significant bump for all the pre-93 guys. And I say unfortunately because what people don't know is this includes guys all the way up until 2011, where there was another change in the collective bargaining. Well, it was the last collective bargaining agreement, because there's the post-93 guys to 2011. They also are included in this bump. So that actually lowers the money for the pre-93 guys. And the reason I say unfortunately is because they also, from 93 to 2011, they have 2 or 3 other buckets of money that they're making their hand even better than it was, and the other guys,
they're not in need as much.
But it could have been better had they said, hey, look, guys, when it's all said and done, you're doing quite well with what you have, with everything you have. We were trying to bring up the older guys. So, but anyway, be happy with the fact that actually, I think, and I have to say this, that FAIR, which was the organization that my wife Lisa Marie created, had really made some significant progress, I think, in creating awareness to fans, the players, the owners, and making everybody go, yeah, you know what, this is the right thing to do. Because, it could have been a half step where, let's throw them a few bones,
right,
kind of like the last legacy benefit. But now I think it's going to be significant. I certainly hope
you
so.
guys stuck with it, so kudos to you for getting something done. Very well done.
Pass it on to my wife.
Kudos to Lisa Marie as well. And speaking of Mark Mosley, I want to ask you something about Mosley. But first, I want to remind you, if you're looking for another chance to win, the $100,000 Scratcher replay from the Virginia Lottery is exactly that. Now through March 31st, any non-winning Virginia Lottery Scratcher offers a shot at winning $500 in a daily drawing or even $10,000 grand prize. Here's a lowdown. Any non-winning Virginia Lottery Scratcher can be entered into a daily drawing. Each daily drawing, 2 players will win $500. Every entry into the daily drawing is automatically entered into the grand prize drawing, which is set for April 7th. That's 10 grand. So on April 7th, one lucky player with a non-winning ticket will win $10,000. All entries must be entered either via valottery.com/replay or at the Virginia Lottery app. The fun doesn't stop if you don't win your scratcher. Just replay it with $100,000 scratcher replay. Visit valottery.com/replay for more info. The odds of winning a grand prize in the 100K scratcher replay promotion depend on the number of entries received. One final reminder, bring your team to cheer on the Redskins. 2020 group ticket deposit window is now open. Your deposit will give you priority access to the best seats available when the 2020 schedule is released. Visit redskins.com/group tickets or call or text 301-276-6033 for more information on group tickets.
Hey, I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
Who's bored? Who's broke? And who's back?
I wanted to always see the redwoods. I wanted to see the Rocky Mountains. I wanted to see the Painted Desert, the Petrified Forest, the Grand Canyon. That was like the land that I always wanted to go to.
John Riggins.
Mark Mosley, you mentioned Mark Mosley. You know, I actually, while in Indianapolis, you know, I want to do little entertainment, and so my phone automatically downloads Riggo the Diesel. It's one of the podcasts that I subscribe to, of course. So I could, and wow, what an athlete he was!
Did you see all that?
Wow, yeah. I mean,
I was stunned, Larry.
9.5 in the 100-yard dash. Now,
20.8 to 220.
I didn't know he had that kind of speed because I think wasn't Bob Hayes the world's fastest human?
He wasn't in 1964. Bob Hayes he ran. I think 10 flat was as fast. That's 100
meters. 9.1 was the 100-yard dash.
I don't
record.
think he ever got to 9.1. I think it was Jimmy Hines. I'm not 100% sure. Frank Budd hit 9.2. I think he was in Villanova, and then Jimmy Hines hit 9.1.
He's got it. Todd has done the research.
But I don't think
he's
Bob
doing the
ever
research.
Got that. But he was.
I thought Bob Hayes was 9.1 on the 100.
He won the Olympics in 1964, and then he went on to play for the Dallas Cowboys, never to run again. I think he was 21 years old.
I think he won
the Olympics.
He ran an 8.900 when he took that last leg. That would in the meters.
That's true.
He took the last leg in the Olympics.
Yep.
And he made up like a 20-meter deficit and one going away.
Yeah, somebody was making fun of the American team, and then they didn't realize they had Bob Hayes running the anchor.
And I've never heard of this dash, but he currently still holds the world record for the 70-yard dash, 6.9 seconds.
I've never heard of a 70-yard dash.
Also tied for the world's second fastest 60-yard dash.
What about the 100? What did he do the 100? He's getting there.
I'm going to say Bob ran. I'm going to say 9.3 was his.
I want to say 9.1. 9.1. Yes, see, I knew that.
In St. Louis, 1963.
9.1. Is it still the world's record in the 100-yard dash?
100 meters, 9.9 Tokyo.
He ran 9.9 in Tokyo?
Yeah.
I'll be damned. I thought it was a 10 flat.
200 meters, 20.5.
Man.
63.
Which is almost, that's really close to 220 yards.
220 yards. 20.6.
And Mark Mosley is in that range?
20.8. Mose ran in 20.8.
20.8.
So Bob would have been like 2 lengths ahead, went 2 steps ahead of Mose.
Did he do it with that square shoe on his foot? That must be kind of uncomfortable.
What, Mose ran it with a square-toed shoe? Did he have both of them or just the one? Just the kicker?
That could be performance enhancing. I don't know.
They'd have to look into that.
My man Mose. Wow. I didn't realize he was that accomplished of a track star.
He also was, I think what Mose told us when he transferred to Stephen Austin, that he was a quarterback, but basically they ran the single wing offense. Right. So he had the ball quite a bit. So and I would have never known that. Now I understand. See, I always used to get a little worried on Sunday when I'd see Mose, getting ready for the game, and he'd be in front of the mirror and he'd be pulling on his sweatbands, tightening up his gloves, fluffing his hair. And
he never used his hand.
He never with the hair. You got to look good on the sidelines. I'm completely good with that. But when I see Mose with gloves and sweatbands, I'm thinking
it's a kicker. He doesn't use his hands.
Yes,
it's not even a punter.
He shouldn't really touch that football with his hands. If he does,
he's in trouble.
Something has really gone wrong. Yeah. And if you don't believe me, ask Gary.
Gary Apremian. Yeah. Kickers don't need to be handling the ball.
Exactly. You're not supposed to touch the ball, Mose. You don't need the gloves.
But did you see that? Did you see that punter at the combine? 25 bench presses. Matt Turk, the old punter here for the Redskins, his nephew. I don't know if it was the son of Dan Turk.
His nephew?
Yeah. His last name is Turk. 25 reps on the bench press as a punter. This guy's jacked.
And how much weight is it? 200?
225. Right, Asa? 225?
225.
Yep. Yeah.
Does the punter really need to do that?
Maybe that helps him. I don't know. I can't hurt.
He's got to tackle that guy when he gets free. He's the last guy between this and 6 points. He's got to be able to use that forearm. Yes, I think he does.
I mean, that was
kicker,
just amazing.
No. The kicker, no.
Well, let's face it. We all know where the real money is, and it's not playing; it's broadcasting.
That's true. But before we get to Tony Romo, I also learned that Mosley has a connection to Ecuadorian bananas.
Yes, he does.
Which I didn't know that either. I learned a lot by listening to Riggo The Diesel last week.
That podcast.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah, and you know what's amazing? And Mark said, because when they moved back up here, it's like the dad Mark said, I'm pretty sure this is right, Todd, you were here last week. Basically, he was getting to where he spoke Spanish more than he did English. Mark did. From living in Ecuador, and that's when his dad went, I think we got to go back to the States. He's becoming an Ecuadorian. We're Americans. I didn't get that in what he said, but anyway, it was true that Mark, I never have asked him. Next time I see him, I say, Mark, tell me, hey, the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog. Could you say that in Spanish for me?
He's not going to say it.
One last Mosley tidbit.
Yes.
He played soccer, but he kicked straight on in football. He did not come up when he moved back here.
He's quite a Renaissance man.
Right. He saw, where was it? Where were they? Were they at, he was at Texas A&M. Wasn't that where he was discovered? No, it was on high school.
Yes.
And they were kicking, and he said, hey, can I give it a try, coach? And next thing you know, he belts it through, and he became the kicker.
Wow.
Which is pretty interesting when you think he was a everyday player, he played both ways in high school. He was, defensive
League
back.
NFL MVP.
An NFL, the only kicker ever to be an
NFL MVP.
That's pretty impressive.
Now, did Joe win the following year?
Yep.
Joe won the following year. How about that? Back-to-back Redskins. Yes. Kicker and a quarterback. Quarterback, you're right, though. They're the guys that they take all the pictures.
MVP, any MVP in any game is the quarterback's to lose.
Who do you want in your broadcast with? Apparently, America wants a Dallas Cowboy quarterback.
Yep.
Well, I mean, Tony Romo, if this is true, that if it's at that much money, then they got to be making money with those broadcasts. You can't. That's got to be justified somewhere. That's not a lost leader.
You know what? He and I had this conversation, Larry, when I said, I got to ask Larry this question because this makes no sense to me. In other words, I'll put it to you the same way I did Todd. So you're paying this guy $17 million a season to be your lead broadcaster with Jim Nance, who's your lead guy for the play-by-play.
Right.
And I'm thinking to myself, if they don't have Tony Romo, if CBS announces, well, we're going to have whoever, replace Tony Romo, does that mean because this is the game of the week that they're going to showcase, they're going to market it and all this stuff, people are going to go, no Tony Romo? I ain't watching that game.
Well,
I just don't get it.
That's not a fair question to ask me because I'll always turn it off if he's on there with the other guy's Troy Aikman. But, of course, I never have to worry about that because I'm at the games. But somebody's justifying that salary. And I would say it's the ratings probably for those games last year showed an increase. He is entertaining. And I bet you're going to see him rolled out in some big commercials this year that's going to justify that salary. They will make their money off of Tony Romo.
Well, in other words, what you're telling me is that because of the ratings that he will – but then again, how do you attribute it to him? My point is, really, will people not watch games because Tony Romo is not doing the broadcast?
No, I think that's –
So that would tell me that he doesn't affect the
What was that razor thing you said again before?
Occam's razor.
Occam's razor. You're stating the obvious, but it's more deep than that because there is money generated through sponsorships.
Right.
And I'm telling you right now, you're going to see Tony Romo, in some commercial.
Yeah. He is on, and when he was at the Pebble Beach AT&T and these other things, people love Tony Romo right now.
And Jim Nance loves Tony Romo.
Yes.
He sure does.
But Nance doesn't love him completely because he knows that Romo's shooting for his spot to do the Masters.
Oh.
Do you don't think Jim Nance ain't looking over his shoulder? Oh, he ain't been sleeping well.
Yeah. I don't know about those good old guys.
Part of the $17 million is the Masters. Hey, Jimbo, come here. We need to talk to you out here.
That's where the green jackets, they say, Mr. Romo, have a seat over there.
Yeah.
Patron.
Yes, I think that is not a fait accompli or a razor's edge or whatever. Occam's razor.
Gillette razor. Let's just keep it simple.
Yes.
Gillette. All right, Larry, I'm about talked out.
I think that was a heck of a deal. Good to be back, and we will see you next week.
Very good.
When you scratch and you don't win,
100K Scratcher Replay.
Say what?
It's the Virginia Lottery 100K Scratcher Replay.
If I scratch and I don't win, I could still win?
That's right. Now through March 31st, enter any non-winning Virginia Lottery Scratcher for a chance to win one of 2 daily $500 prizes or the $10,000 grand prize. Visit VALottery.com/replay for details.
100K Scratcher Replay.
Odds of winning a prize depend on the number of entries received.
The time for adventure is now. And if you want a car as exciting as your lifestyle, then it has to be an all-wheel drive Honda SUV. With more features, the CR-V has standard Honda sensing, more room for friends, the Pilot has seating for 8, more comfort, the HR-V has available heated seats, and more rugged. The Passport is built for adventure with ample cargo space and hidden storage compartments. So no matter when adventure calls, your Honda will always be ready. See your local Honda dealer today.
Dear customer service, I can always count on Novak. My power is always on, my payments always go through, and Novak actually cares about the community they serve.
Dear Novak, your electric costs are reasonable. Some electricity is from alternative sources, and cost reductions are passed along during the year. Thanks.
Novak, power you can count on.
Redskins fans, this is Darryl Green. After 20 years of being privileged to don the burgundy and gold on the football field, I've added another team's colors to my collection. For the past 16 years, I proudly adopted the green and blue of Main Street Bank. Whether I'm using their simple-to-use mobile banking or dealing with their incredibly helpful staff, Main Street Bank always makes things easy for me and all of their customers. To find out all the ways they can help you, visit us at mstreetbank.com, member FDIC.